What if I told you that all those alpha male podcasts were actually teaching you to be less of a man? That putting your value in cars, money, clothes, or the amount of women you can pull is actually putting a limit on your masculinity? Well, let's get into it. But before we do, let me introduce myself. My name is Chris, and this channel is called The Outpost. I'm working to build a community for men where we can recharge, we can grow, teach one another, and help each other find purpose from a Christ-centered perspective. If this video blesses you in any type of way, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your loved ones. Some very, very important conversations are going to be had on this channel, and I don't want you guys to miss out. So now back to the subject, right? I want to paint a picture for you guys. Somewhere right now, there's a guy being told that he's not man enough for a number of reasons. Whether it's he showed emotion in a situation where he should have been emotionless. He doesn't make enough money. In some cases, he might not even be tall enough. I've heard just about everything that can be said about a man not being a man. And it's kind of getting ridiculous at this point. You know, there seems to be a standard that has been created for men, almost impossible to fulfill. And to be honest, it's crushing us. Now, before y'all click off this video thinking that I'm out here about to bash women, nope, that's not what this is about. Because I hear this thing come from men too. People are out here telling us that we got to be strong at all times. We got to be stoic. Oh man, somebody disrespect us, we gotta react violently. We can't let somebody get one over on us, right? We've heard time and time again, especially in recent years, that we've got to make a six-figure income at the very least. We've got to be high value men. But I've always wondered why high value only refers to the amount of money you make and not the amount of character that you have. What happened to wisdom? What happened to peace? What happened to knowledge? Are these things not things that we're supposed to provide also? Oh, and God forbid you have any type of emotional need, right? We're told to keep our head up, but nobody really listens to us. You ever try to have a conversation with your homeboys about something you're going through? And it's like the dude try to one up you. Like, oh man, you know, I'm really going through it. You know, my wife is she's all over the place, man. And I just want to know what you think about this. What kind of advice do you have for me? They'll tell you, oh man, I got fired from my job. I got a broken leg. And man, I'm blind, bro. But you don't see me complaining. Keep your head up, dog. This is the type of stuff we got to deal with. It's the funniest thing. It's like you can't even vent in some cases. And if you want love, you gotta earn it. Prove you deserve it. And then there's the constant judgment. You know the quote, as a man, why are you insert whatever you want? As a man, why are you reading comic books? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you eating vegetables? Yeah, I've heard it. We as men are crumbling under this weight. Depression and mental health conditions are being diagnosed at an all-time high. Suicide rates are high. It's getting really, really hard out here for us. But this is what seems to be required of a man in this age. This is masculinity. And by my opinion, mine alone, unqualified, I'm not an expert on anything, I feel like this type of masculinity is just entirely too fragile. You know, it's like men have to walk around carrying this invisible scorecard. Every interaction becomes a test of your masculinity, of your manhood. Somehow you have to challenge every dude you meet to make sure that he's a real man. It's crazy. For example, have you ever been in the gym and somebody walks past you, or you walk past somebody, you size them up, they size you up, and it's like y'all have this internal battle about who's the strongest man here? I mean, if you haven't, you know, that's what's up. But I've been on both ends. You know, I'm not ashamed to say that. But I got a really funny story actually for you guys about that. So, quick disclaimer: for the person I'm gonna tell the story about is my coach. Love him to death. You know, if I tell this story, he'll probably want to kill me, but it is what it is. Coach, I love you, man. But I gotta share this story because God is so good. So, Pete, I like to box. Okay, it's actually my preferred form of cardio. I'm not a Golden Glove champion or anything like that. I haven't even had a match. But I will say this, I know enough to be dangerous. So don't try me, try Jesus. Anyway, I'm in the gym, right? And at the gym, they have like 2 boxing bags. So I'm in there, I'm getting my work in, doing my thing, right? And I'm just about toward the end of my workout. And this guy comes in and, and I think I'm like in between rounds or something, right? And, just taking my breather. And this guy comes and he just drops his stuff, all his gear in my spot. So I'm like, what's going on here, right? Anyway, he kind of just takes over the space, and I'm like, you know what? I'm tired. I ain't got time for this. Let me just back off. I'ma chill, do my thing. So at the time, I didn't really know much about him other than that I saw him, training people on the side and stuff like that. He didn't seem to be like an official trainer at the gym. But at the time, God was working on me on some things. I won't say that I was like, my relationship with God in general at the time was a little so for him to have done that and God to have put this situation in my path, it was really the biggest test, one of the biggest tests that I could have at that moment. As a man, right? That phrase, as a man, so many things rose up in me in that moment. But I was like, you know what? I'ma chill. I got 2 little babies. Things are looking up career wise, and I ain't got the opportunity. I don't have the privilege of losing my cool right now, because that's how I used to handle things. And God, unbeknownst to me, was really doing a big work in me. So, I get home and everything, talk to my wife about it, and, leave it alone. So I think a couple days later, I go back to the gym, and he comes in again. And so he puts himself in front of my bag this time, and he's getting himself ready to go, putting his gear on and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, I'm getting ready to train some people, pretty much you got to get going. I don't remember exactly what he said, but that's how I interpreted it. It's been some years at this point. Same thing, right? That heat, that fire. I'm like, this guy is really, really trying me. And I promise you, every scripture that I could think of started to wrap around my mind. And it's funny because at the time, I ain't want nothing to do with God. I ain't want nothing to do with ministry. I didn't want nothing to do with God's people. I'm trying to stay in my corner, incognito, trying to do my thing. Leave me alone, God. And one of the things that he reminded me of is that we don't wrestle with flesh and blood. We wrestle with the spirit. So I'm like, okay, this man might have something going on. I don't know, but whatever. He trying the wrong person. I'm short, but I'm also crazy. You can ask my wife about it. Anyway, all that out of the way. I asked this guy, and it had to be spirit led for sure. I asked this dude, I said, hey coach, how much you charge? Now, when I tell you the atmosphere shifted in that moment, I'm not even exaggerating. He's putting on his boots and, first he's like, heavy browed and, ready for whatever, right? Ready for whatever confrontation comes from how he was acting. And then a smile comes across his face. He's like, you know what? We'll talk about it. I'm like, okay. So a few days later, we had our first session together. I wanted him to understand that, hey, I'm a hard worker. I'm not here to waste your time. But whatever you have for me, I'll take it, I'll apply it, and do what I can to incorporate that into my everyday training. And he understood that, hey, I'm a hard worker. And he was impressed by the amount of energy and work that I put into that first session. And then, we had more sessions after that. And I had learned some things about my coach, some very dear things, and we became really close. I gotta say, he's one of my best friends to this day, and I love him to death. Turns out that at the time, he was going through some stuff, just like God had showed, right? He was going through some things, and he was trying to get a business off the ground. Now, what he does today, if you guys ever get a chance, please, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, please look up Jungle Boxing. Because what God is doing through his life right now is just so intense that he's actually built a community for young men, a space, a safe place for these young men to get out of the street, to put all that anger, that energy, that attitude into something productive. And he's got something crazy going on. He might call it a business, I call it a ministry, because he's out here doing what God called him to do in that area. And if I had let pride take over me and exploded in that moment, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be part of any of that. So coach, I love you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Now, if I had listened to those so-called experts and podcasters, right, I would have been getting in God's way. Now, we've all heard the old saying, right? Hurt people, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about these alpha male podcasters. So it's almost like these guys are working overtime to create this blueprint, right? The blueprint of the perfect man. They preach the alpha male mentality. They have so much to say about how you need to dominate women. You need to make this X amount of money. You got to be high value. You got to be flexing all the time. All of these things, right? They've pretty much reduced masculinity to animal kingdom logic, right? They, whoever has the most resources or access to women is that guy. But what they don't tell you is that they're hurting. These men are generally hurt men who are spreading poison to other hurt men. They're desperately trying to reach this status of alpha by comparison and putting down other men. They call sensitive men simps. And in my opinion, a lot of times it's because they're intimidated by emotional intelligence. Now, when we talk about the beta male or the simp, right? Truthfully speaking, there are those guys who just put way too much energy into a situation, whether it be them chasing after women or a job or whatever the case, right? Where they're allowing themselves to be chronically taken advantage of. That's not what I'm talking about. Those guys, we can say that for a separate video. We'll talk about that. But my goal here is to work toward tearing down this goal of alpha male. Because when you challenge those men intellectually, the first thing they do is start to beat their chest, right? I got this amount of money. I got this amount of women. I got these cars. Who are you to tell me anything? That's what they put their value in. And I'm not saying these things to bash them, because at the end of the day, we want to help these guys too. We want to help these men see the truth. Because in my experience, I've learned that something traumatic has happened to these men that has stolen their masculinity. In some cases, they may have been essayed, right? They may have been taken advantage of in a way that makes them feel like they're less of, or there was something, it might have been the way that they were raised, that there's a goal that they can never achieve, so they have to find some way to compensate for these things. And because they feel like something has stolen their masculinity, they want to steal yours too. Now, don't get me wrong. As a man, there goes that phrase again, right? You should be a provider of your household. You should be a leader in the home. You should absolutely take your place as head of the household. If your wife and children are out of order, it's your responsibility to bring that order back. It's on you to train them, and it's on you to raise that family to make sure that they're on the right track. But that subject deserves its own video. But when it comes to these men, I earnestly pray for them and the people who follow them. They're stuck in a trap. It's an endless competition. There's no real end to it. There's always going to be a bigger alpha in reality, right? It's always going to be someone who's bigger and stronger and has more money and has access to more women and has the better car and has a balder head and has a longer beard. They're chasing moving targets. And if you're one of the people that subscribe to these ways of thought or these schools of thought, you're chasing a target that you'll never hit and you'll never be satisfied. So let me present a situation to you, just hypothetically, right? Let's say that you do become the greatest man in the world, that you have all the money, cars, women, whatever it is, right? How the old guys used to say it, the women want to be with you and the men want to be you, that kind of thing. You're that guy, right? Let's create that image. You reach the top of this pyramid, but here's what the world won't tell you, is that even when you are the greatest man, God is still bigger than you. In the end, you still gotta humble yourself to the Almighty. And that brings me to the greatest example of masculinity that the world has ever seen. So let's talk about the true alpha, Jesus Christ, the greatest man to ever walk the planet. And when I say man, just hyphenate that for a second. So here you have God, right? The creator of everything. He's the richest, he's the strongest. There's no one that can beat him. He's still undefeated till this day, right? And he's gonna remain undefeated for the rest of time. The most powerful being in existence decided to come from heaven to earth to show us the way. And when I say show us the way, he came down here to humble himself to us. So here you have God, who's bigger than everything, humbling himself to us, people. He served us. He taught us. He laughed with us. He cried with us. He washed our feet and he died for us. And he didn't just die in any type of way. He died like a slave. By the world's definition, they would call him a simp, the greatest simp. He died for the very people that hated him. And you want to talk about strength? Y'all, I don't know if you ever did a study on how heavy the cross is, but on its own, it's pretty daggone heavy. And to carry that cross while he's concussed, he's got all type of he's got blood covering his eyes, and he was beaten brutally, got all type of contusions and things like that, and he's carrying this heavy cross up a hill. Come on now, let me give you some details real quick. So Jesus walked this earth at some over 2,000 years ago, right? At this point in time, he was only 33 years old. Okay, so he only was here for 33 years. The most controversial name in history, bar none. You say Jesus to somebody, they either get excited or they're angry, and everything in between. When we talk about what Jesus did, right, as far as being an alpha, yo, first of all, he had the devil shook the entire time. Like from the moment he was mentioned to be alive here on earth, from the time he was born, you had people trying to kill this man. The devil had been moving and moving and moving. The devil was scared of him. I don't know of any alpha male podcaster, and I have watched a lot over the years. I don't know of any of these dudes who have claimed to have the devil shook. Like, we talking about the true alpha and omega to be exact. But for the sake of these dudes, we talking about true alpha. So how did God achieve all of this? How did Jesus achieve all of this? What did Jesus really leave for us? So the Bible in itself teaches us to be masculine, right? If you didn't know. So when it comes to the overall conversation of masculinity in the Bible, there are a few guidelines that were left for us. Actually, there's a whole lot of guidelines, but I'm going to give you some tools that you can start with. So through his word, God shows us that true masculinity is achieved by following Jesus's example. His word teaches us that love is our greatest weapon. Love. His word teaches us that love is our greatest weapon and that he himself is love. So let me share with you a few scriptures that you can chew on. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Prophecy and speaking in unknown languages or tongues and special knowledge will become useless, but love will last forever. And then my favorite, Galatians 5:22 and 23, talking about the fruits of the Spirit. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, peace, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. And then you have Romans 8:31 through 37, where it's explained that because of God's love and because we're connected to him, you are made more than conquerors, and that nothing can separate you from the love of God. There is this and so much more. I'll go ahead and post in the description some more scriptures and tools that you can use. So with that said, I want to really drive home the point that love is power. Love is man's greatest weapon. Love is the source from which our power derives from. In the book of Romans chapter 3, verse 22, it mentions how love is how you become righteous by putting your faith in Jesus Christ. In the book of Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22, it mentions that love is our inheritance in the legacy we leave behind. And my best friend, David, King David, in this Bible, he don't know he's my best friend, but when I meet him, we gonna be tight. King David was on top of the world. He was that guy that these alphas want to be. And this is what he said in Psalm 37, verse 25. He said, "Once I was young, now I'm old. Yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor their seed begging for bread." So here's the thing. You want to learn what type of man you're supposed to be? Don't take it from me. Don't take it from these podcasters. I want you to go ahead and find a Bible, or go ahead and download that Bible app or whatever, right? And find out what God said about you. So that leads me to this question. Will you chase the world's broken definition of masculinity, or will you follow the example of the greatest man who ever lived? Now, as for me, I think I know what I want to choose. God's word says that I can be all these things and leave a lasting impression and legacy for my family. That's an easy choice. And on top of that, my family's going to be blessed for generations. I think I know where I'm going to place my value. True masculinity isn't about dominance. It's about service. It's not about taking. It's about giving. It's not about fear. It's about love. So I want you to see if your own definition of manhood stacks up to what we talked about today. So I'll leave you with this. God came down from heaven to earth. He served us. He died on the cross. And he showed us what a real man looks like. Will you be brave enough to follow his example? I want to thank you for stopping and clicking on this video. If this has blessed you in any type of way, and if you like this type of content, please like, comment, subscribe, and please share with your loved ones, especially your brothers, your uncles, your cousins, those men who really need a hand up. The Outpost is here for them. Y'all be blessed, and I'll see you in the next video.